Unwelcome tidings from the government as signs emerge of a budget under pressure. And for the first time since Labor came to office, talk of serious public service cuts.
Winter is coming on a range of fronts.
Finance Minister Katy Gallagher responding to a report the government has ordered departments to find savings of as much as 5%.
What we have asked agencies to do is think about all the things they're doing, all the programs they administer, and to consider whether they are still priorities.
With the budget forecast to stay in deficit for a decade and less likelihood of more free kicks from global commodity revenue, there's a new note of frugality creeping into the government's messaging.
I'm concerned by reports today of a new austerity measure and would like to understand how many total jobs will be lost from the APS.
It's not an austerity measure. You can go out and say that in the media as much as you like. This is about fiscal discipline and making sure that when we make investments in the public service, that they are using those investments for the highest possible need.
Katy Gallagher and Treasurer Jim Chalmers have been busy on next month's budget update, and they've already indicated there won't be handouts or splashy spending initiatives.
Here I wanted to be clear that this year's mid-year update will not be a mini budget with lots of new initiatives. The mid-year update will be precisely that, an opportunity to update forecasts and the fiscal position. The main game will be in May.
Given that this is now a second-term government with a comfortable majority and an opposition that is really battling, you would expect that the government will take the chance to tidy up the budget in a bunch of ways. Now, that means decisions that people won't like. It also means taking time to get that right. We probably won't see those in a few weeks when the government delivers its budget update. But there has been no tough budget, no horror budget delivered by this government so far. The coming May may be the closest we'll see.
Unlike the government's first four budgets, which were helped by commodity revenue windfalls, there's a greater need to find savings, particularly if it's to make room for new priorities, such as the Prime Minister's ambitions for universal childcare.
Basically, it's had a lot of luck on the budgetary front, and luck's a fortune, but it's not a strategy.
Economist Chris Richardson says the overall bill for public sector workers has grown by nearly 9% a year over the last 3 years. The government's official forecasts then anticipate that bill will plateau.
For a while now, we've had a problem that the government has promised wage rises to individual public servants that don't add up to the amount of money they've set aside for the public service as a whole. Something had to give, and the obvious thing was that public service numbers had to come under pressure.
Katy Gallagher insists the government does not plan to reduce the overall staff level.
We are not looking to reduce ASL as part of that. We have been very clear that we thought the public service was in terrible shape when we came to government.
Labor's low-key push to curb costs comes after it slammed opposition leader Peter Dutton in this year's election over his plans to cut 41,000 public service jobs.
Peter Dutton likes to pretend that you can just cut 20% of the public service and there'll be no impact. And that's just not reality.
Chris Richardson, who previously worked for one of the major consulting firms used by government, says Labor has been trying to reverse a surge in professional outsourcing.
The idea was that it would spend less on consultants and more on the public service, getting stuff done cheaper and more efficiently than otherwise. Now, it's still relatively early days in that switch, but as we stand, you would say it's been pretty expensive in terms of the increase in public sector salaries. That total bill has risen a lot, and our savings on overall consulting spend, not huge.
The darkening fiscal outlook is shaping up as a major political battleground for 2026. Coalition Treasury spokesman Ted O'Brien is set to deliver a major address to the National Press Club on Wednesday, as the Liberal Party tries to rebuild its reputation as the party of fiscal responsibility. O'Brien will argue that the government's forecast return to surplus depends on nearly $500 billion of additional income tax revenue over the next decade, a burden he says will fall on younger voters. After 6 months where the Coalition's troubles have dominated political headlines, there's a sense the focus is shifting back to the government's challenges. Environmental law reform is a major piece of unfinished business, as is gambling advertising, which continues to haunt the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, I've recently had conversations with a significant number of government backbenchers who want a gambling advertising ban.
Our Labor caucus makes decisions, which is why we have done more than any government since Federation to tackle problem gambling. We'll continue to work as a caucus and as a government to continue to work on these issues.
The Prime Minister again forced to reject calls for a ban on gambling advertising, which Labor backbencher Mike Freelander told the ABC would pass Parliament with a conscience vote. And increasingly, his view looks bipartisan.
It's 2 years without any action on gambling, and I think it's well past time. I think most of the Parliament thinks that, the Liberals and Coalition think that, the crossbench thinks that, and I think the Labor backbench thinks that.
Personally, I see gambling reform as unfinished business for the Labor government, and I'm hopeful for some positive action.
Okay, so you're still pushing for it?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I'm not the only one.
There are only 2 days of Parliament left this year, but there's still much to do before the Christmas break.